Hi guys, now it's international section of our conference. Yeah, I guess I haven't been watching the first one. First one was in Russian. I haven't been watching it. What we prepare for you, absolutely great and astonishing figures, big institutional figures. First one is gonna be BuzzSumo. Everybody use BuzzSumo. Rand Fishkin admitted he is not using most content. He is using BuzzSumo. So first one is gonna be BuzzSumo, and Susan Moeller with us. Susan, how are you doing today? Yeah, okay. You should learn a little bit Russian, or everybody should speak English, which probably is happening anyway. Okay, guys, we are kind of we are losing, we are out of schedule a bit. So we have Susan Moeller, BuzzSumo. BuzzSumo, as I said, we've done our research actually, very unscientific or not scientific research, and we ask everybody what the tools they use. BuzzSumo was in every single survey. Everybody use BuzzSumo. Okay, Susan, it's all yours.
Great. Well, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate being able to be here with you. And I wanted to, for those of you who aren't familiar, just tell you a little bit more about BuzzSumo. So BuzzSumo, this is me, by the way. Hi. BuzzSumo is a tool to help marketers and publishers develop great content through research, amplification, and monitoring. We refer to that process as RAM, an ongoing cycle of first researching content that will engage your audience, amplifying that content, and then monitoring the results. The monitoring feeds back into the process as research for your next content asset. If it sounds like a lot of work, it is, and you might be asking, why don't I just write a post, stick it on my blog, and forget it? Well, here's why. We analyzed 1 million posts and found that 50% of those posts got 8 shares or less. And fully 3/4 of those 1 million posts did not even get one referring domain link. Let me say that again. 50% of the 1 million posts we analyzed got 8 shares or less, and 75% of those articles did not even get one link. We're convinced that it is much easier to make content with low or no impact. To make content assets that resonate with an audience is going to require more, especially more research, more amplification, and more monitoring. So today's topic is, what are the best practices in content marketing that can help you produce content that will engage and grow your audience? Here's what I would recommend. First, research what your audience likes and produce that. Second, amplify your content. You cannot just post it and forget it. You need to work with influencers to amplify your content, to broaden your distribution. Then you want to monitor what works and what doesn't work and adjust accordingly. Actually, and this might not come as welcome news, but this process is never really finished. Even if you frequently succeed with your content and get a lot of shares, preferences change over time, and the nuances of what people respond to really do make a difference. So here are some questions that you might want to consider in your research. Ask yourself what resonates with your audience. What are they sharing? What are they linking to? What are they commenting on? You want to ask what types of content are catching their attention. What length of content do they prefer? You want to know about that. You want to find out what is trending in your industry. You want to find out what is trending online in general and ask yourself over and over again if you can relate that to your content. You also want to find out what is working best for your competitors. What is your audience finding on their sites? What are they linking to? And do they excel your competitors at a particular type of content? What can you learn from the wins your competitors get? What can you learn from their mistakes? Now, I want to demonstrate how to answer some of these questions with BuzzSumo. For example, if I'm producing content about cloud security, it would be helpful to know what content on that topic got the most shares. Now, this is a search for the most shared content on cloud security. And you can see from this that the most shared article on cloud security got got more than 10,000 more shares than the next most shared piece. Why? Well, I'm not in this industry, but I have some guesses. The headline, first of all, is tackling a hot topic for cloud security. The question of how much it's going to cost in terms of time to keep data secure. This headline also uses quotation marks around split in a way that is intriguing. It sort of makes you want to know more about what they mean by split since they put it in quotation marks. This piece of content also seems to be delivering an answer to an important question. So all of those are some insights that I would draw from this listing that shows a piece of content that got 10,000 more shares than the next most popular piece. Now, this is a detailed look at the most shared content about content marketing. These charts reflect our analysis, and then they draw actionable insights. Accessing this information is a huge time saver because the analytic work is done for you. Here you can see that the preferred length and content types for shares of content on content marketing are 3 to 10,000 words in length. And you can also see that the preferred content type is an infographic or a list post on all networks except for Facebook, where video is the most preferred type of content. Now, I'm also going to want to pay attention to content that is trending in my industry. In BuzzSumo, I can do that in really short time increments of 2 hours, 4, 8, 12, or 24 hours. If you see a story developing and trending that would be appropriate for a client to comment on or appropriate for you to comment on, you can respond to that. You might be able to develop a piece of content around it as well. Now, at BuzzSumo, we also looked at the most shared content of 2015, and we discovered that leveraging a trend like zombies could boost your content significantly. For example, this is a post from Fox News. It got 400,000 comments. It's about a cruise, but the headline leverages the zombie trend. The interactions here were off the charts. It got 400,000 comments. The takeaway is if you can leverage a trend. In 2015, hopefully you are all producing content that leverage the zombie trend. Now, here are some other results of our research into the most shared content of last year. Content that was characterized by these elements were more likely to be heavily shared. The first is an emotional element, things that were amusing or surprising, heartwarming, things that warned or shocked, appealed to people and were heavily shared. The content elements that we found were effective were images, facts, charts, quotes, videos. Topic elements were trending topics like zombies, health and fitness, cats and dogs, babies. I don't know what would happen if we combined a baby zombie, but it might be off the charts. A fourth thing is a format element. List posts, quizzes, stories, picture post curation were all very popular formats. I wanted, when you have a list like this, you want to apply it by asking yourself over and over again if you can take one of these elements and use it for your content. I wanted to give you an example of a couple of these. On Facebook, an article about privacy, if you searched for the most shared content about privacy, it was an article warning people to avoid Facebook quizzes. It's in the top 3 for content that's been shared over the past year, and it only came online about a month and a half ago. It has 200,000 shares. The link to that post was the most shared post on Mari Smith's Facebook page from the last 6 months. It's a warning. In addition to that, I took a look at BuzzSumo's most shared content from the past year. Our first 2 pieces of most shared content reflected the format elements that you see here at the end of the list. One of them was a research insights piece, and one of them was a practical tips piece. Now, in addition to learning from trends across the web, you also want to pay attention to what your competitors are doing. What are they publishing that's being shared heavily? In this list of pharmaceutical companies, Novartis is clearly the content winner. The top 4 of the top 5 pieces are from Novartis. If you're a competitor, you're going to want to take a look at what they're producing and ask, how can I use those ideas? And if you aren't sure of who your content competitors are, just watch to see who's producing the content that gets the most shares. Now you have great content. Hopefully, you've applied all of these things. Can you just stick it on your site and forget about it? No. The hard work is not over. We've been thinking a lot about this topic of content shock. There's just so much content out there that it's no longer reasonable, if it ever really was, to assume that people will simply discover your content. What we're trying to emphasize is that even great content won't just rise to the top in terms of social shares. Successful content marketing is going to require amplification. Here's what I mean by that. You need to work with influential people to increase the distribution of your content, primarily by having those influencers share your content with their audiences. The basic steps are first finding influencers, then building relationships with them. And I really can't emphasize that enough. You can automate some of this process, but at the end of the day, this is a human interaction. The third thing you need to do is look for partnership opportunities. Influencer outreach is a powerful marketing strategy. At BuzzSumo, we use it as our primary marketing tool. We don't actually really have a marketing budget, and our organic search results are really not that great. If you think about how you heard about BuzzSumo, it's probably via a blog or another influencer-driven channel. Now, here are some things you can ask yourself when looking for influencers. You need to find out who's tweeting successful content, which Twitter users are relevant for your topic. You need to ask yourself who's already tweeting the stuff that I'm publishing. Who's tweeting your competitors' content? Ask yourself which authors are getting the most shares and which websites are getting the most shares. Those are the basic steps in finding influencers. Now, you can use BuzzSumo to search for influencers on Twitter who are interested in your topic. What we do is we take a look at people's Twitter bios, we take a look at the list they've been added to, and extent, we look at their tweets and compare that with keywords to identify topics for which they're relevant. But we give you a lot of different metrics like page authority, domain authority, followers, retweet ratio, reply ratio, and average retweets. With all of that information, you can craft influencer outreach lists that are targeted to the exact metrics that you are interested in. Another way you can find influencers is look at heavily shared content and pay attention to how it was amplified. You can do this by clicking on View Sharers in BuzzSumo, and we'll show you a list of people who specifically shared the content that you're interested in. In other words, when you're looking at the most shared content, you don't want to just get content ideas from the most shared articles. You want to also get ideas about how that content was amplified. We emphasize this all the time. Amplification needs to be a full-on part of the development process and not something that you push post and then begin to think about. Begin to think about it from the beginning of the creation cycle. Now, you can also take a look at the people who are already tweeting your content. Make sure you engage with them. Influencers don't have to have an incredibly large audience. The people who are already interested in your blog are a valuable part of your content reach. And you can also take a look at the people who are promoting your competitors' content. If they have an interest in your competitor, you also want them to have an interest in you. Now, if you develop lists like these in BuzzSumo, you can also export these lists for Twitter ads if you would like. The people who are publishing heavily shared content are also influencers. When you do searches for the most shared content, you want to notice the sites that get a lot of shares, and then you want to notice the authors who get a lot of shares. You're going to want to work on building relationships with some of these people, possibly collaborating on projects with them. If you have a product that is research-based or a tool that could make these authors more effective, offer to share it with them. Finding the domains that get the most shares for your topic is also a valuable part of influencer outreach. Once you have a list of domains, you're going to use those for content examples, possibly advertising options, and also partnership opportunities. Now, the next step is to build relationships with influencers. I think part of us always wants to just completely automate our influencer marketing. I hear questions all the time. How can I send bulk emails? How can I send bulk tweets? People want to make this automatic. And some of the tasks can definitely be simplified via processes or tools. But at the end of the day, the amplification process is based on human interactions. So, going into your influencer strategy, you want to consider first what you have to offer to influencers. You want to interact with them, and then you want to offer to help them. Truthfully, there's a limit to how much this is going to scale for any one person or any one business. And that limit on how much you can scale the human process makes researching the best influencers for your industry niche even more important. Now, our tool can help you to engage with your influencers. Let me go back one slide, 2 slides. There we go. You can use it to search the conversations that the influencers you're interested in are having. You can use our search tool to find out if they're talking about something that you're personally or professionally interested in, and then you can engage with them on that topic. You can also look for questions that influencers are asking and be a part of answering them. If they need information, join in. Here's one question that Joe Palizzi asked, and then our answer to it. That was a nice way to interact with him. Another thing to consider is promoting the content of these influencers. These are 2 women that I've worked with on content pieces. I've added them to an influencer list within BuzzSumo so that I can consistently see what they're tweeting. And I can go in, I can respond to their tweets, I can retweet the things that they're publishing, I can like their content. Now, those are all things that bring value to these influencers. And I'm hoping as time goes on that we'll have more and more of a relationship and be able to collaborate more and more on different content pieces. Another thing to think about is helping other people to make connections. Here's an example. I thought that my friend Elisa might be a good fit for something with Web Promo Experts. So just so you know, I sent the email before we even started today. So think about what you have to offer. You can offer people resources like maybe free access to your tool. You can offer them information. If they're preparing content in your content area, then you might want to offer them some information that will help them to produce better content. Think about how you can offer amplification for what they're doing. And then we come to monitoring. Don't waste all of the hard work that you've already done by failing to learn from your own successes and your failures. You need to pay attention to things like who's linking to your content. Pay attention to who's sharing your content. If someone shares your content, go in and thank them for it. If someone links to your content, go in and read that post. One time I had published a blog and I found that it was linked to someone else's blog. I just clicked over to see the blog and I found that there was this robust conversation about the topic happening in the comments of a blog that linked to my content. So I was able to jump into that conversation and respond to some people's comments, ask some questions about their areas of expertise that were different than mine. And it was a great opportunity to really continue to develop that relationship. Then you need to ask yourself again, what did you learn about how people reacted to this content asset? Even the ones that you've based on the best practices, you need to go back in after they're online, take a look at them, and see what has happened in response to that piece of content. Monitoring is important, so don't forget it. Don't leave those content pieces just out there in the wild by themselves. So here's a quick review, the best practices of content marketing. First, research what your audience likes and produce that. You want to find the content that they like and respond to it by giving them more of what they like. Amplify your content. Work with influencers to broaden the distribution through their channels. And finally, monitor what works and what doesn't and adjust. Thanks again for listening to the best practices. I think we're going to take a few minutes for any questions that you might have.
Okay, thank you very much. It was very exciting. Some people are late as usual. Even we started a bit late. Some people still got late and asking if it's recorded. Well, it's live, but we are recording it, and the records will be available for sure. Okay. Now we are looking at your screen. Stop sharing the screen if you can.
I will stop sharing my screen.
Yes, you're still sharing your screen. Yeah. Okay.
Oh no.
Okay. People asking about your prices, but I don't think we have a time to answer this particular questions. Everybody who is interested in BuzzSumo, and everybody should be interested in BuzzSumo, just check it's BuzzSummo.com, isn't it? And prices, all prices are there, all offers. Do we have? Okay, I'm checking if we have more questions.
One thing I can say is that we do offer both a free version of our tool and several different paid options. So we generally think there's something there for everyone. And you're welcome to check it out and even do a free trial. Anton, I think I've stopped sharing my screen. Have I?
Yeah, you're fine. You're just great. Would you recommend Outbrain to distribute content? This is a question. And
that is a...
Yeah?
Yeah, that's a great question. I am not very familiar with Outbrain, so I really can't speak to that. I wish I could. Anton, do you know about it?
I don't use Outbrain. Well, and that was a comment. No, use Taboola. Taboola is a king. Do you know anything about Taboola? Guys, yeah, okay, you're an expert anyway, so not only BuzzSumo question. Taboola? No?
Taboola? No.
Okay, I have Claire, okay, I can't read surname, it's probably contacted, but BuzzSumo seems great. Thanks for presentation. So thanks for presentation. Do we have a bit more time? Okay, we have more questions. What kind of property data do you gather that isn't publicly accessible?
What kind of data do we gather that's not publicly accessible?
Yeah.
Great question. We rely on the public APIs of the different social networks. So the information that we have is, with one exception, which I'll tell you about in just a second, accessible via those APIs. What we offer is, a lot of times what comes from those APIs is not necessarily in a useful format. So our technology team works on it to pull it together, summarize it, and present it. Now, in the case of Twitter, we are purchasing data from GNEP. So with Twitter, it's no longer possible to share information for free. So BuzzSumo relies on a combination of purchase data from GNEP along with other information from APIs that are a bit more technical.
Yeah, okay. We do have a kind of funny question. What do you say to influencer that you identify on Twitter that you would like to work with? Yes, I guess it's outreaching, but still, what would you say to an influencer? I guess they're talking about some kind of cold email or cold call, whatever.
Yeah, it's a great question. I don't send direct messages typically on Twitter. I do that.
Somebody will get your email, which probably is not a big deal to get your email, yeah, and send you a message and say, oh, look, we watched you today, for example, and we wanted to, I don't know, whatever. Would you reply, generally speaking?
Generally, yes. I like to do things that are partnership opportunities. So it needs to be something that is a good fit for BuzzSumo, as well as a good fit for the person. So when someone reaches out to me, if it's a good fit, then, we'll do it. What I've done in the past as well, and I think a nice strategy, is to include influencers from the beginning of your content process. If I am working on a blog piece, a lot of times I do some research within BuzzSumo. I find the most popularly shared content. I read it. And then instead of just directly citing that piece of content, I will tweet the person who wrote it and ask, hey, I found this piece you wrote. I'm working on something similar. I'd like to ask you a question. I usually offer a link to their site. Now, I'm a little bit careful about that. If it's a site that is fairly obscure, I probably won't. But if it's a site that I feel like I could recommend, then I would reach out to them that way. So I find that element of partnership, looking for things that are a help to both people in the exchange, is really good. I'm a little bit less likely to just share content that people send me. Hey, I wrote this, share it. Um, just because it doesn't always fit with what BuzzSumo's doing. So I'm a little bit more careful about that. I'm especially careful about sharing on Facebook, a little bit less careful about sharing on Twitter. And I use Pinterest as just sort of a general collection of articles that I'm interested in. So I'm a little bit even more willing to pin things if I have a board for it.